Shalom family, let's talk Israel. So to start, let's just take a word from our sponsor quickly. Psalm 122 verse 6 to 8. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls, prosperity within your palaces. For the sake of my brethren and companions, I will now say, peace be within you. Straight from the word of God, in a time when the world is aligned together perfectly against the people of Israel, we shall stand for and with Israel as the Lord instructs us to. So we saw in the last week, which I thought was a brilliant reminder from Israel to the rest of the world and especially her enemies, that they can touch you anywhere, where Israel went in to another sovereign country and hit Hamas where they were safe and comfortable in peace and security, and sudden destruction arrived upon them without prior knowledge. Now, of course, Qatar is highly upset and freaked out completely. And why not attack Israel then? No, going to call all of her so-called friends together and try and rile up the neighbors. But I thought it was quite a big message that was sent by Israel. Rubio promises unwavering U.S. support for Israel after meeting with Netanyahu in the wake of the Qatar attack. Marco Rubio promised that the U.S. would offer unwavering support to Israel in its war in Gaza as he met Netanyahu following the Israeli strike on Hamas leaders. The U.S. Secretary of State said Hamas must cease to exist as Washington attempted to contain the fallout from the strike on Doha, which sparked international outrage, especially after they gifted Donald a plane. So there's that. It's quite a delicate balancing act in politics right there. Egypt now says they discovered Israeli attempts to kill Hamas leaders on their soil. Cairo warns that any Israeli strike on Hamas figures in Egypt would be treated as a declaration of war, as the Doha attack prompts regional fears. That was the point of the attack. Qatar calls for retaliation against Israel for the strike in Doha. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani vowed on Tuesday to retaliate against Israel for its strike against Hamas political leadership based in Doha. He should be talking to his parents about all these names he's carrying. Shame, man. The state of Qatar is committed to act in a decisive way with anything that would target its territories and will reserve the right to retaliate and will take all the needed measures to retaliate, Al Thani said at the news conference on Tuesday. The Qatari Prime Minister said his Minister of State will convene a meeting Wednesday to review all policies and directives to deter such actions and measures in the future, so it cannot happen again. Please don't fly into our country and bomb buildings without giving us a heads up. Trump warns Netanyahu not to bomb Qatar again. President Donald Trump criticized Israel's military strike on a meeting of senior Hamas leaders in Doha, Qatar, and warned Benjamin Netanyahu not to carry out additional attacks inside Qatar, according to Axios report published on Thursday. Yeah, I'm sure Trump knew all about this attack, 100%. 50 Arab and Muslim leaders host urgent summit in Qatar over Israel's treacherous Doha bombing. The 50 leaders across the Arab and Islamic world gathered in Qatar's capital for an emergency meeting in an unprecedented show of unity against Israel's shock bombing of the Gulf state last week, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned further strikes may be on the horizon. Now, is it just me, or is it a lack of intelligence on a visceral level that they still plan a meeting with all their leadership in the place Israel just bombed a group of leaders meeting? I'd rather say, maybe we have the meeting in Saud or somewhere else where Israel's not currently taking out meetings. The increasingly alarmed bloc of leaders convened in the Gulf state on Monday, including, unusually, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the mover and shaker, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Emirati President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, whose countries have in the past boycotted Qatar over diplomatic disputes, so not friends. The aim was to hammer out a joint plan of action, Qatari officials told The Independent, as Doha is seeking legal recourse and the suspension of Israel's membership in the United Nitwits. Asked about whether Israel would consider bombing Hamas operatives in other sovereign countries, the Prime Minister said Israel follows the principle that terrorists should not have immunity wherever they are. The raid, he added, sends a message. You can hide, you can run, we will get you. He has previously warned Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists that you either expel them or bring them to justice, because if you don't, we will. Israel is willing to do that and follow through on their words, which they have now proven clearly to the Arab world at large, the Islamic world, and the rest, all sitting up and taking notice. Iran is now calling for an Islamic NATO, giving chilling resemblance to a future Gog-Magog setup. In an escalating Middle East landscape, Iran and Egypt are key proponents of a NATO-style military alliance amongst Islamic nations. The development comes as leaders convene in Doha, Qatar, on September 15 for an emergency summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Which is funny. Oh, I see. Israel bombed you. Oh, I see. Sorry. Triggered by the recent strikes, including a controversial attack on a residential compound in Doha housing Hamas negotiators, the summit aims to forge a unified response to regional threats. Proponents argue that such an alliance could provide collective security against external aggressions, when most of the aggression is instituted by Iran and her proxies. Twisted. Potentially reshaping the geopolitical balance in the region. This move invites a speculation about the alignment with ancient biblical prophecies, particularly the war of Gog and Magog, described in the book of Ezekiel, where Iran, ancient Persia, plays a pivotal role in leading a coalition against Israel. Iran, Russia, Turkey, Ethiopia. It gets interesting. The call for an Islamic NATO is not entirely new, but has gained unprecedented momentum in 2025. With heightened tensions, Egypt, boasting the Arab world's largest standing army, has revived the proposal first floated in 2015 for the Joint Arab Security Force modeled on NATO's mechanism. Gog and Magog players, when you sit and you unpack who they are, have been shown 2-3 years ago already, that I've shown on this channel already, having meetings and discussions and bilateral agreements and preparations and plans. They've already come together. They're just sitting and plotting and planning that part of prophecy as well. So we see all the things falling into place as the world sees it falling apart, as everything comes to a head for a time such as this. Pray for Israel. Pray that more Jews find Messiah in the pages of their Tanakh. Their eyes go open, their hearts of stone are replaced with hearts of flesh, and they receive him into their lives so that they can skip out on Daniel's 70th week, Jacob's trouble, the time of testing that is at the very door. Shalom.